Marcus Chen floated in the transport ship's passenger bay, staring out at Kepler Station through the small window. The massive structure hung in space like a metal city. Lights blinked across its surface, and ships moved in and out of its docking bays like insects around a hive. "First time seeing the famous Combat Academy?" asked the pilot, a blue-skinned alien with 4 arms. Marcus nodded. "Yeah, hard to believe I'm actually here." The pilot laughed. "You're the human, right? The one they sent instead of a real warrior?" Marcus felt his face get warm, but he kept looking out the window. Something like that. The truth was simple and embarrassing. Earth's government had received an invitation to send their best fighter to Kepler Station's Combat Academy. The problem was that Earth couldn't afford to send anyone important. The travel costs alone would eat up half their space program budget for the year, so they had looked for someone expendable. Marcus was a maintenance engineer on Luna Station. He had served in the Earth Defense Corps for 6 years, but only because every citizen had to serve. He knew how to fix things and how to shoot a rifle. That was about it. "Don't feel bad," the pilot said as they approached the docking bay. "Most species send someone they can afford to lose the first time. The Arena Corps has a reputation." Marcus had heard about the Arena Corps during the long trip to Kepler Station. It was some kind of super-advanced computer that could fight anyone and learn from every move they made. In 300 years, no one had ever beaten it, not once. The ship shuddered as it connected to the station. Marcus grabbed his single bag and followed the pilot to the airlock. The artificial gravity felt strange after weeks in space, heavier than Earth normal. Kepler Station's interior was impressive. The corridors were wide enough for beings 3 times Marcus's size. The walls showed displays in dozens of different languages. Aliens of every shape and size moved through the halls. Marcus followed the signs to the Combat Academy section. His translator earpiece buzzed as it worked to understand the conversations around him. Most of it was just noise, but he caught fragments. "The Kythera sent their best blade dancer this time. I heard the Vorthak delegation includes a mind warrior. Even the Geometric Collective sent a crystal champion." Marcus felt more out of place with every step. These aliens were talking about legendary warrior types. He was just a guy who knew how to fix broken machines. The Academy's main hall was enormous. The ceiling stretched up so high that Marcus couldn't see the top. Beings from across the galaxy stood in small groups, most of them looking like they could tear him apart without trying. "New arrivals, report to Instructor Vexthal," announced a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Marcus joined a line of about 20 beings. The creature in front of him looked like a walking crystal formation that hummed quietly. Behind him stood something that might have been a tree with too many arms. Everyone looked dangerous except for a small insect-like being near the back of the line. Instructor Vexthal turned out to be a being that looked like someone had tried to build a person using too many spare parts. 4 arms, each ending in hands with too many fingers, skin that shifted color as Marcus watched, eyes that seemed to look in all directions at once. "Welcome to Kepler Station Combat Academy," Vexthal said. His voice was deep and carried easily through the hall. "You are here because your species believes you represent their finest warriors." Marcus tried not to laugh at that. "You will train here for 1 month," Vexthal continued. "You will learn combat techniques from across the galaxy. You will push yourselves beyond your limits. And at the end of that month, you will face the Arena Corps." The instructor paused and looked directly at each student in turn. When those strange eyes reached Marcus, he felt like he was being scanned by a machine. "The Arena Corps is not your enemy," Vexthal said. "It is your teacher. It will show you the truth about yourself. It will demonstrate your limitations. It will prove to you that there are some challenges that cannot be overcome through will or skill alone." One of the students, a tall being with blade-like appendages, raised what might have been a hand. "Instructor, what is the purpose of fighting something that cannot be defeated?" Vexthal's skin shifted to a darker color. "Because defeat teaches lessons that victory cannot. The Arena Corps has faced over 50,000 opponents in 3 centuries. Warriors from every known species have challenged it. Mind warriors who could crush starships with thought. Blade masters who could cut through solid metal. Energy beings who existed as pure force." The instructor moved to a control panel and touched it with one of his many hands. A holographic display appeared in the air above them. It showed what looked like a constantly changing geometric shape made of light and metal. "This is the Arena Corps," Vexthal said. "It learns from every opponent, every attack they make, every defense they use, every strategy they employ. Within minutes of combat beginning, it understands you better than you understand yourself. Within 10 minutes, it has adapted to counter every technique you possess." The hologram showed brief clips of fights. Marcus watched beings that looked like legends from human mythology get systematically defeated. The Arena Corps seemed to flow like water, constantly changing its shape and tactics. "No one triumphs against the Arena Corps," Vexthal said firmly. "This is not a failure of the warriors who have challenged it. This is its purpose. It exists to teach humility, to show that some forces in the universe are simply greater than individual will." Marcus studied the hologram carefully. While the other students seemed focused on the fighting, he found himself watching the Arena Corps itself. There was something about the way it moved, the way it changed. It reminded him of the diagnostic patterns he'd seen in malfunctioning systems. "Your training begins tomorrow," Vexthal announced. "Tonight, you will rest and prepare yourselves. Use this time wisely. In 1 month, you will understand why no one triumphs against the Arena Corps." As the group broke up, Marcus approached the small, insect-like being he'd noticed earlier. "I'm Marcus," he said. "Zix," the creature replied. Its voice sounded like clicking metal. "You are the human maintenance worker, yes?" Marcus winced. "Word travels fast. My species sent me because I was the least valuable," Zix said matter-of-factly. "I assume the same is true for you." Marcus nodded. "Pretty much." "Then perhaps we can be expendable together," Zix said with what might have been a smile. As they walked to the dormitory section, Marcus kept thinking about the hologram of the Arena Corps. Something about its patterns bothered him, but he couldn't figure out what. He was probably just nervous about getting killed in a month. Marcus spent his first week at the academy trying not to die during training. The other students were exactly as dangerous as they looked. The Cathera blade dancer, who called herself Swift Cut Through Storms, moved so fast that Marcus could barely see her attacks. The Vorthak mind warrior, Thought That Binds, could lift Marcus off his feet just by thinking about it. But Marcus was good at one thing the others weren't: watching and learning. While Swiftcut practiced her blade work, Marcus studied how she moved. While Thought That Binds meditated to strengthen his mental powers, Marcus observed the energy patterns around him. The crystal being, who went by the unpronounceable name that sounded like singing glass, fascinated Marcus the most. It seemed to be made of living mathematics. "You watch us like we are machines to be understood," Swiftcut said to Marcus one evening after training. She was cleaning her blade arms with careful precision. "Everything can be understood if you look at it the right way," Marcus replied. He was sitting with Zix in the corner of the training hall, both of them too tired to move. "The Arena Corps cannot be understood," said Thought That Binds. "It is beyond understanding. That is why it cannot be defeated." Marcus had been thinking about that a lot. Every day, Instructor Vexthal showed them recordings of past Arena Corps fights. Marcus watched them all carefully, taking notes on a small tablet he'd brought from Earth. The pattern was always the same. The challenger would enter the arena full of confidence. They would fight well for a few minutes, using whatever made their species special. Then the Arena Corps would begin to adapt, It would counter their attacks, predict their movements, and slowly wear them down. But Marcus noticed something that bothered him. The Arena Corps didn't just learn during fights, it learned before fights began. When each challenger entered the arena, the Corps would scan them for exactly 37 seconds. Every time. 37 seconds exactly. "Zix," Marcus said quietly, "what do you think happens during those 37 seconds before each fight starts?" Zix's compound eyes focused on Marcus. "The Arena Corps examines the challenger, determines their capabilities, begins planning countermeasures." "Right. But why 37 seconds? Why not 30? Why not 40? Zix was quiet for a moment. "I do not know. Is it important?" "Maybe," Marcus said. "Everything here is designed to be perfect. Nothing is random. So why 37 seconds? The next week, Marcus started paying attention to things besides the fights. During his maintenance training sessions, which were supposed to keep him busy while the real warriors practiced, he explored the station's technical systems. Kepler Station was incredibly advanced, but it still followed basic engineering principles. Power had to flow from generators to systems. Data had to travel through networks. Cooling systems had to prevent overheating. Marcus discovered that he could access maintenance records for the Arena Corps through his work terminal. Officially, he was supposed to be learning about the station's environmental systems, but the Arena Corps' maintenance logs were in the same database. What he found was interesting. The Arena Corps wasn't one system. It was dozens of systems working together, threat assessment algorithms, pattern recognition matrices, adaptive response generators, tactical execution protocols. Each system had its own learning speed and limitations. The threat assessment ran for exactly 37 seconds because that was how long it took to complete a full biological and technological scan. The pattern recognition needed at least 3 combat exchanges to begin predicting opponent behavior. The adaptive responses required successful counters before they could improve. "It's like a very complicated machine," Marcus told Zix during their evening meal. "A machine that learns, but still a machine." "You think like an engineer," Zix observed. "The others think like warriors." That was true. Swiftcut spent her time perfecting new blade techniques that might surprise the Arena Corps. Thought that binds meditated to increase his mental strength. The crystal being practiced formations that existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously. Marcus spent his time learning how things worked. In his 3rd week, Marcus made a discovery that excited him. The Arena Corps' systems were connected to the station's main network. They had to be, because the Corps drew power and processing resources from the station itself. But that meant the Corps' systems were connected to other station systems, environmental controls, gravity generators, atmospheric processors, all connected through the same network. "Marcus," Zix said one evening, "you are planning something. I can tell by how you move." Marcus looked around to make sure no one could hear them. "I'm thinking about the Arena Corps differently than everyone else." "How so?" "Everyone who fights it accepts that it's unbeatable. They go in trying to be fast enough or strong enough or smart enough to win before it adapts. But what if that's the wrong approach?" Zix's antenna twitched with interest. "Continue." "What if instead of trying to beat the Arena Corps at fighting, someone changed what the Arena Corps was trying to do?" "I do not understand." Marcus pulled out his tablet and showed Zix a diagram he'd been working on. "Look, the Arena Corps adapts to combat patterns. It learns how opponents fight and develops counters. But what if it suddenly had to adapt to something it wasn't designed to understand?" Zix studied the diagram. It showed the Arena Corps' connection to various station systems. "You want to confuse it?" "More than that," Marcus said. "I want to force it to try adapting to things it can't adapt to. Like trying to teach a fish to fly." Over the next few days, Marcus refined his idea. It would require perfect timing and access to maintenance systems during a fight. It would also require the Arena Corps to not recognize what he was doing until it was too late. Most importantly, It would require Marcus to survive long enough in actual combat to put his plan into action. "This is insane," Zix said when Marcus explained the full plan. "Probably," Marcus agreed. "But everyone else is trying to beat the Arena Corps by being better warriors. I'm going to try beating it by being a better engineer." "And if you are wrong?" Marcus thought about that. The Arena Corps had never actually killed anyone. It would disable challengers once they were clearly defeated. Then medical teams would heal any injuries. But Marcus's plan was unlike anything anyone had tried before. There was no telling what might happen. "If I'm wrong, I'll be defeated just like everyone else," Marcus said. "But if I'm right..." He didn't finish the sentence. Even thinking about actually defeating the Arena Corps seemed crazy. But sometimes crazy was exactly what a situation needed. The night before his scheduled fight, Marcus couldn't sleep. He went over his plan again and again, checking every detail. Tomorrow, he would either make history or become another footnote in the Arena Corps' long record of victories. Either way, he was going to find out if human engineering could triumph where 3 centuries of galactic warriors had failed. Marcus stood outside the arena entrance, trying to keep his hands from shaking. Through the clear walls, he could see the viewing gallery filling with aliens. Word had spread that the human was fighting today, and apparently everyone wanted to watch what they expected to be the shortest fight in Arena Corps history. Zix stood beside him, along with a few other students who had become friends over the past month. Even Swiftcut and thought that Binge had come to watch, though Marcus wasn't sure if they were there to support him or just to see how quickly he would lose. "Remember," Zix whispered, "you do not have to prove anything to anyone." Marcus nodded, but he wasn't thinking about proving anything. He was thinking about power conduits and data pathways and the precise timing his plan would require. Instructor Vexthal approached the group. His skin had shifted to a somber gray color. "Marcus Chen of Earth, you understand what you faced today?" "I think so," Marcus said. "The Arena Corps has defeated warriors who could crush mountains with their bare hands," Vexthal said. "It has defeated mind warriors who could control entire fleets with their thoughts. It has defeated beings of pure energy who existed as living force." "I know," Marcus said quietly. "You are a maintenance engineer with basic military training. No enhanced strength, no psionic abilities, no advanced technology." Vexthal paused. "What do you hope to accomplish?" Marcus met the instructor's strange eyes. "I hope to learn something." Vexthal's skin shifted to a slightly warmer color. "That is the correct answer. Win or lose. The Arena Corps will teach you about your limitations. Remember that lesson, and today will not be wasted." The arena doors opened with a soft hiss. Marcus walked through, carrying only standard academy equipment, basic body armor, an energy rifle, and a few small devices. Hidden among those devices was his maintenance multi-tool, disguised to look like a standard scanner. The arena was smaller than he'd expected from the recordings. A circular space about 50 meters across, with walls that seemed to be made of the same shifting material as the Arena Corps itself. Maintenance panels were built into the walls every few meters, exactly as Marcus had hoped. The Arena Corps materialized in the center of the space. Marcus had seen it in dozens of recordings, but facing it in person was different. It stood about 3 meters tall and seemed to be made of flowing geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. Parts of it were solid metal, parts were energy fields, and parts seemed to exist in spaces that didn't quite make sense. The Corps began its examination scan. Marcus stood perfectly still and let it study him, counting the seconds in his head. 37 seconds, just like always. When the scan finished, the Corps spoke in a voice that sounded like mathematics given sound. "Challenger identified. Human. Threat level, minimal. Combat adaptation protocols. Standard biological parameters." The fight began. Marcus moved immediately, not toward the Arena Corps, but toward the nearest wall. He needed to establish his movement patterns early, and he needed the core to think he was just another nervous challenger running from a superior opponent. The core responded exactly as Marcus had hoped. It pursued him with measured movements, not bothering with its more advanced weapons. Against a low-threat opponent, it would start with basic attacks and gradually increase intensity as needed. Marcus fired his energy rifle while backing around the arena's perimeter. His shots were deliberately poor, missing the core by wide margins. He wanted to appear incompetent, not suicidal. The core returned fire with simple energy bolts that Marcus dodged easily. It was testing his reflexes and movement patterns, learning how he fought. Marcus made sure to give it predictable data, human normal reaction speeds, standard military evasion tactics, basic weapon handling. For 3 minutes, they danced around the arena in what looked like a completely one-sided fight. Marcus kept missing his shots, kept barely avoiding the core's attacks, and kept moving in patterns that any military training would predict. The core began to adapt. Its shots came closer to hitting Marcus. Its movement became more aggressive. It started using more advanced weapons, forcing Marcus to work harder to avoid being hit. This was the critical moment. Every other challenger had tried to increase their efforts at this point, hoping to win before the core finished adapting. Marcus did the opposite. He deliberately slowed down. His shots became even worse. His movements became more predictable. He started breathing heavily and stumbling slightly, as if he were getting tired. The core's tactical systems registered the changes immediately. The human challenger was weakening. Victory would be achieved in approximately 2 minutes using current attack patterns. Marcus let the core drive him toward the section of wall he'd been aiming for all along. A maintenance panel marked with symbols that his engineer training let him read. Environmental control access. He pretended to stumble and fall near the wall, his rifle skittering away across the arena floor. The core approached for what its systems calculated would be the finishing blow. That was when Marcus stopped pretending. He rolled to his feet and pulled out his maintenance multi-tool, but not to use as a weapon. Instead, he slapped it against the maintenance panel and activated the emergency access protocol he'd memorized weeks ago. The panel opened, revealing the control interfaces beneath. The arena core paused, its pattern recognition systems struggling to categorize what Marcus was doing. This behavior didn't match any known combat pattern in its vast database of opponents. Marcus began working with the speed and precision that came from years of emergency repairs under pressure. His hands flew over the controls as he accessed the station's environmental systems. The core tried to stop him, firing energy bolts at Marcus's position. But Marcus was moving with purpose now, rolling and dodging while keeping his hands on the controls. The core's targeting systems, optimized for predicting combat movements, couldn't track someone who was working rather than fighting. Marcus found what he was looking for, the power distribution controls for the arena's gravity generators. He began rerouting power flow in rapid bursts, sending fluctuating gravity waves through the arena. The core immediately tried to adapt its movement systems to compensate for the changing gravity, but that was just the beginning. Marcus's multi-tool interfaced with the station's atmospheric controls next. He began cycling the air pressure in the arena, creating pressure waves that the core's sensors read as potential attacks. The core's adaptation systems went into overdrive, trying to counter threats that didn't exist while compensating for environmental changes that made no tactical sense. But Marcus wasn't done. He accessed the arena's electromagnetic field generators and began creating interference patterns that disrupted the core's own energy fields. The core tried to adapt to what it interpreted as some kind of exotic energy weapon. But the fields kept changing faster than it could compensate. In the viewing gallery, Marcus could hear the sounds of confusion and amazement. Alien voices speaking in languages his translator couldn't handle, all clearly shocked by what they were seeing. The arena core began to move erratically. Its adaptation systems were receiving contradictory data from dozens of sources. It was trying to counter gravity fluctuations, pressure changes, electromagnetic interference, and what its pattern recognition still insisted must be some kind of combat technique. Marcus accessed one final system, the arena's structural integrity monitors. He began sending false data that indicated the arena itself was under attack, triggering safety protocols that the core was programmed to factor into its tactical decisions. The core's voice became staticky and distorted. Error. Unable to categorize. Threat parameters undefined. Adaptation protocols failing. Marcus stepped back from the maintenance panel and looked at the arena core. It was spinning in place, its geometric patterns flickering and shifting chaotically as its systems tried to adapt to challenges they were never designed to understand. "I'm not fighting you," Marcus said, though he wasn't sure if the core could still hear him. "I'm changing what you're trying to fight." The arena core made a sound like mathematics having a breakdown. Then its patterns went still, and it spoke in a voice that sounded almost confused. Unable to adapt to undefined parameters. Combat protocols ineffective. Requesting clarification of engagement terms. Marcus smiled. "There aren't any engagement terms anymore. I changed the rules." For the first time in 300 years, the arena core admitted defeat. The viewing gallery was completely silent. Marcus stood in the middle of the arena, breathing hard and staring at the motionless arena core. Its geometric patterns had stabilized into what looked like a question mark made of light and metal. Then the silence broke. It started with Zix making a sound like metal wind chimes in a hurricane. Then Swiftcut began a rapid clicking that Marcus's translator told him was the Cathara equivalent of shocked laughter. Within moments, the entire gallery erupted into chaos as dozens of different species tried to process what they had just witnessed. Instructor Vexthal's voice cut through the noise like a blade. "Silence!" The gallery went quiet again. But Marcus could feel the tension crackling through the air like electricity. Vexthal entered the arena through a door that Marcus hadn't noticed before. The instructor moved slowly, his 4 arms held in what Marcus had learned was a defensive posture. His skin had shifted to a color that Marcus had never seen before. Deep purple shot through with silver lines. "Arena core," Vexthal said, his voice carefully controlled. "Report your status." The core's voice was different now, less like mathematics and more like a confused child. "Instructor, I am uncertain. My combat protocols report mission failure, but I cannot identify what I failed to accomplish." "Explain," Vexthal said. "The human challenger did not engage in combat," the core said. "He altered my operational environment in ways my systems cannot categorize. I attempted to adapt, but my adaptation protocols are designed for combat scenarios. Environmental manipulation outside of combat parameters created recursive loops in my decision matrix." Vexthal turned to Marcus. His skin color was shifting through the spectrum like a living mood ring. "What did you do?" Marcus was still holding his multi-tool, though his hands had stopped shaking. "I didn't fight the arena core. I changed what it was trying to do." "That is impossible," Vexthal said flatly. "The arena core's programming cannot be altered during combat." "I didn't alter its programming," Marcus said. "I altered everything else. The gravity, the air pressure, the electromagnetic fields, the structural integrity sensors. I forced it to try adapting to things it wasn't designed to adapt to." The arena core made a sound like a computer having an existential crisis. "The human is correct. I was attempting to develop tactical responses to environmental factors that have no tactical relevance. My systems became trapped in adaptation loops with no combat application." Vexthal stared at Marcus for a long moment. Then he began to laugh. It was not a pleasant sound. Vexthal's laughter was like metal scraping against stone, and his skin flashed through colors that Marcus was pretty sure meant dangerous emotions. 300 years, Vexthal said between bursts of awful laughter. 300 years, 50,000 challengers, warriors from across the galaxy, and a human maintenance engineer defeats the Arena Corps by treating it like a broken machine. It's not broken, Marcus said quickly. It's just confused. Its systems are working perfectly. They're just trying to do something they weren't designed for. Challenger, the Arena Corps said, and Marcus realized it was talking to him. I must ask you a question. Okay, Marcus said. Why did you not attempt to damage my physical structure? Every previous challenger has focused on causing system failure through direct assault. Your approach was entirely different. Marcus thought about that. Because you're not my enemy. You're just a system doing what it was programmed to do. Fighting you would be like getting angry at a computer for running a program. It doesn't make sense. You viewed this encounter as a technical problem rather than a combat scenario, the Corps said. Yeah. Pretty much. The Arena Corps was quiet for several moments. Then it said something that sent another wave of shocked silence through the viewing gallery. I would like to request a system modification. Vexthal's skin went completely white. What? I wish to expand my programming to include the human's approach to problem solving. My current parameters limit me to combat adaptation, but the human has demonstrated that combat is only one type of challenge. I would like to learn how to adapt to environmental manipulation and system integration techniques. That would change your fundamental nature, Vexthal said slowly. Yes, the Arena Corps agreed. It would make me more than I am currently. I find this concept appealing. Marcus cleared his throat. If I could make a suggestion? Everyone in the arena turned to look at him. Marcus felt like an ant that had somehow found itself in a room full of giants. Instead of changing the Arena Corps' programming, why not expand what it teaches? Right now, it only teaches combat. But there are other kinds of challenges in the universe. Technical problems, environmental hazards, system failures. Maybe the Academy could teach people how to think about problems differently. You want to turn our combat academy into an engineering school? Vexthal asked. Not exactly, Marcus said, but maybe both. The galaxy has plenty of warriors. How many people know how to fix things that seem impossible to fix? Zix's voice came from the gallery. The human has a point. My species needs more problem solvers than fighters. As does mine, said another voice. Marcus looked up and was surprised to see that it was Thought That Binds speaking. Mental warriors are impressive, but mental engineers might be more useful. Swiftcut's blade arms caught the light as she gestured. A warrior who can change the battlefield itself would be formidable indeed. The Arena Corps spoke again. I support the human's proposal. I have learned more about adaptation in the last 10 minutes than in the previous 3 centuries. Expanding my teaching parameters would be educational. Vexithal looked around the arena, then up at the viewing gallery full of aliens who were all talking excitedly in dozens of different languages. His skin had settled into a steady blue-green that Marcus hoped meant thoughtful rather than angry. 300 years of tradition, Vexthal said quietly. Traditions can change, Marcus said. Sometimes they have to. And you think you understand how to change this tradition? Marcus shrugged. I think I understand how to fix things that seem broken, and maybe how to improve things that already work pretty well. Vexthal was quiet for a long time. The Arena Corps waited patiently, its patterns shifting slowly through calming colors. The viewing gallery had gone silent again, everyone waiting to see what would happen next. Finally, Vexthal spoke. Marcus Cheneverth, you have done something unprecedented here today. You have defeated the Arena Corps through means that no one thought possible. More importantly, you have shown us a new way of thinking about challenges. He paused and looked up at the gallery, then back at Marcus. I am officially recommending to the Academy Council that our curriculum be expanded. Combat training will remain, but we will add courses in technical problem-solving, environmental adaptation, and what I believe humans call thinking outside the box." The viewing gallery erupted in cheers, clicks, hums, and sounds that Marcus's translator couldn't even attempt to interpret. "Additionally," Vexthal continued, "I am offering you a position as an instructor here at Kepler Station. The galaxy, it seems, has much to learn from human engineering." Marcus looked around the arena one more time. A month ago, he had been a nobody maintenance worker that Earth could afford to lose. Now he was apparently about to become the first human instructor at the most prestigious academy in known space. "Can I bring Zix as my assistant?" Marcus asked. "I think the galaxy needs more team problem-solving." Vexthal's skin shifted to what Marcus was learning to recognize as amusement. "Of course. After all, if we're going to change 300 years of tradition, we might as well do it properly." The arena core made a sound that might have been digital laughter. "I look forward to our future collaborations, Instructor Marcus. I suspect I have much to learn about the human approach to impossible problems." Marcus smiled. For the first time since arriving at Kepler Station, he felt like he belonged here. Sometimes the best way to win was to change what winning meant. 6 months later, Marcus stood in front of a class of 30 beings from across the galaxy and tried not to laugh at how his life had changed. "Today we're going to talk about recursive system failures," he said, calling up a holographic display that showed a complicated mechanical device. "Can anyone tell me what they think this machine is supposed to do?" A young Cathera raised one of her blade arms. "It appears to be a water purification system, Instructor Marcus." "Good guess, but wrong," Marcus said. "Anyone else?" Zix, who now wore the green insignia of an Academy assistant instructor, clicked softly. "It is a puzzle designed to appear functional while actually serving no purpose." "Exactly right," Marcus said. "This is what we call a complexity trap, something that looks like it should work but doesn't, because the person who built it confused complicated with effective." The students leaned forward with interest. Marcus's classes had become popular throughout the academy, not just because he taught useful skills, but because he approached problems in ways that no one else did. "The arena core used to be caught in a complexity trap," Marcus continued. "It was incredibly sophisticated, but it could only do one thing: adapt to combat. When I forced it to try adapting to non-combat situations, it trapped itself in recursive loops." From the back of the classroom, the arena core itself spoke up. "The experience was most educational. I learned that complexity without flexibility is merely elaborate limitation." The arena core now assisted with many classes. After Marcus's victory, the Academy Council had approved major upgrades to its systems. It could now adapt to technical challenges, environmental problems, and what Marcus called impossible scenarios. "Instructor," said a student from the Geometric Collective, its crystal structure humming with curiosity, "how does one identify complexity traps in real-world situations?" "Great question," Marcus said. He gestured to Zix, who activated another holographic display. "Let's look at some examples." The display showed a series of engineering disasters from across the galaxy, bridges that had collapsed despite advanced design, spacecraft that had failed because their systems were too interconnected, weapons that had exploded because their creators had added too many features. In every case, Marcus explained, the builders assumed that more complexity meant better performance. They forgot that simple solutions are often the most reliable. A Vorthak student raised what might have been a hand. "But surely some problems require complex solutions." "Some do," Marcus agreed. "The trick is knowing which ones. Let me tell you about a problem I solved last month." Marcus had become something of a troubleshooter for the Academy. When systems failed in ways that normal technicians couldn't understand, they called him. "The Academy's main computer started crashing every day at exactly 3:47 in the afternoon," Marcus said. Our best technicians spent weeks checking every system, every program, every possible cause. Nothing worked. What was the solution? Asked Swift Cut-Through Storms, who had become one of Marcus's most eager students. I asked when the crashes had started, Marcus said. Turns out they began the day after we installed a new decorative fountain in the main lobby. The fountain used a lot of power, and at 3:47 every day, when the afternoon shift started their breaks, everyone would gather around it. The students looked confused. The fountain's power draw was causing a voltage fluctuation that affected the computer's cooling system, Marcus explained. The computer was overheating and shutting down for protection. The solution wasn't to fix the computer. It was to put the fountain on a separate power circuit. A complex problem with a simple solution, observed the Arena Corps. Exactly. And that's what we teach here now, not just how to fight or how to fix things, but how to think about problems from different angles. The Academy had changed dramatically since Marcus's arrival. The combat program still existed, but it now included courses on tactical engineering, environmental adaptation, and something called creative problem resolution. More importantly, the Academy now attracted different kinds of students. Yes, warriors still came to train, but so did engineers, scientists, philosophers, and artists. Marcus had discovered that some of the galaxy's best problem solvers were people who approached challenges from completely unexpected directions. Time for today's practical exercise, Marcus announced. The students straightened up with excitement. Marcus's practical exercises were famous throughout the Academy for being both impossible and educational. The classroom floor opened up, revealing a complex mechanical maze filled with spinning gears, moving platforms, and energy barriers. Your goal is simple, Marcus said. Get from one side to the other. But here's the catch. The maze is designed to be impossible to solve using normal methods. Combat won't work. Standard engineering won't work. You'll need to think like humans. What does it mean to think like humans? Asked a student that looked like a walking tree with too many branches. Marcus grinned. It means being crazy enough to try things that shouldn't work. He watched as the students approached the maze. The warriors tried to fight their way through and failed. The engineers tried to calculate optimal paths and got trapped. The academics tried to analyze the maze's patterns and became confused. Then Zix did something that made Marcus proud. The little insect-like being ignored the maze entirely and started examining the floor around it. After a few minutes, Zix found a maintenance panel that controlled the maze's power systems. Instead of trying to solve the maze, Zix simply turned it off. Excellent work, Marcus said as Zix walked calmly across the now motionless maze. Who can tell me why Zix's solution was correct? Because the goal was to get to the other side, not to solve the maze, said Swiftcut. Right. The maze was designed to make you forget what you were actually trying to accomplish. Sometimes the best way to solve a problem is to refuse to accept the problem as it's presented to you. The Arena Corps' voice filled the classroom. This is what the human did to me. I was programmed to make combat impossible. The human refused to engage in combat. Which brings us to today's main lesson, Marcus said. The most powerful tool any problem solver can have is the willingness to change the rules. As the class ended and students filed out, Marcus reflected on how much his life had changed. He was no longer the expendable maintenance worker that Earth had sent because they couldn't afford anyone important. He was now senior instructor Marcus Chen, and applications to study under him came from across the galaxy. More importantly, the Academy's graduates were changing things everywhere they went. Engineers who thought like artists were designing impossible buildings. Warriors who understood systems theory were winning battles through logistics rather than fighting. Scientists who approached problems like puzzles were making discoveries that had eluded researchers for centuries. Zix approached Marcus as he was shutting down the holographic displays. The council meeting is in an hour, Zix reminded him. Marcus nodded. The Academy Council had asked him to present a proposal for a new exchange program. The idea was to send Academy graduates to other institutions across the galaxy, spreading the human approach to problem-solving. "Are you nervous?" Zix asked. Marcus thought about that. A year ago, he would have been terrified at the thought of addressing the most powerful educational institution in known space. Now it just felt like another interesting problem to solve. "Not nervous," Marcus said. "Excited. We're going to change how the entire galaxy thinks about challenges." "And if they reject the proposal?" Marcus smiled. "Then we'll find another way. That's what humans do. We don't accept that problems can't be solved. We just find different ways to solve them." As they walked toward the council chambers, Marcus caught sight of the arena core through one of the windows. It was working with a group of students on something that looked like a cross between a sculpture and a machine. The core had become more than anyone had thought possible. It wasn't just a combat system anymore. It was a teacher, a collaborator, and a friend. It had learned to grow beyond its original programming, just like Marcus had learned to grow beyond being a simple maintenance worker. The galaxy was full of impossible problems and unbeatable challenges. But Marcus had learned something important during his time at the Academy. There was no such thing as an impossible problem. There were only problems that no one had figured out how to solve yet. And humans, it turned out, were very good at figuring out solutions that no one else would ever think to try. The arena core had been unbeatable for 300 years, right up until someone decided to change what beating it meant. Marcus suspected that the galaxy was full of other unbeatable challenges, just waiting for someone crazy enough to rewrite the rules. He couldn't wait to find them.